to the Tanya. It's a very important topic today. I'm already sapped of energy, but let's try to get into the Tanya idea for today. Very powerful idea in Tanya. I want to talk about the nerd in class. There was actually a joke growing up. It says, be careful from the nerd in your class because one day you're going to be working for him. Right? You ever heard that? Be careful from the nerd in the class because one day you're going to be working for him. I want to talk about the nerd. In today's Tanya, if I may say that, we're going to talk about the nerd. So, I want to ask an interesting question, actually. I want to ask an interesting question. I want to tell, well, let me just say a comment. How many kinds of tzaddikim are there in our class so far? How many levels of tzaddik did we discuss? Who can answer my question? Help me out, somebody. How many levels of tzaddik are there? Ira, how many levels of tzaddik are there? There's 3 levels of tzaddik? There's 2. There's 2 levels of tzaddik. There's the perfect tzaddik and the non-perfect tzaddik. How many levels of Rasha are there? The perfect Rasha and the non-perfect Rasha. Today we're going to learn that there's also 2 levels of the Beinoni. It's 2 levels of the in-betweener. The intermediate guy, there's 2 levels of him. The Beinoni, the middle guy. 2 levels of the Beinoni, 2 levels of the middle guy. So until now we've been learning that the Beinoni is someone that his emotions are running wild. His natural tendencies is that he is ego and he's driven for gluttony and lust and all these negative things. And he has the godly soul opposing that. And he has to learn the first skill we've given. We'll learn a lot of more skills, a lot of more tools to deal with this challenge. The first tool we tell him he has is self-control. I heard that in Rabbi Talib's class today, he says, thank God Tanya didn't stop here, because if the only tool we had in the toolbox was self-control, we'd be living pretty depressed lives. Tanya's going to tell us also how to deal with our emotions, and so we'll talk about that in the next few weeks. But right now, we're learning about the case of that the Beinoni is extremely disciplined, and he knows how to control himself. He doesn't let ever his animal soul take over his thought, speech, and action. Never acts on it. Never lets it into his mind or his mouth. Speaks on it and never acts on it. That's the high level of the Beinoni. The Tanya says, however, there are some people that are struggling more than others. There are some people that are struggling more than others. And that's where I bring in the nerd. There are some people, let's say, that they're very, very passionate people. Extremely passionate people, whatever they do in life. And then there are people that are the opposite of that, are extremely cold people. Extremely cold, very passionate. And on the other side, you have people who are very unpassionate people. The passionate people could have a much harder life, a greater struggle in life than the people who are colder. The passionate person loves everything they see. They want it. And their discipline has to be so strong to constantly control this very passionate person, right? So there might be some people in our class that their heart's on fire. They're always passionate. And they're lustful and they're driving and they're driven and they're gluttonous to always want that. And their Beinoni power has to constantly control this raging animal, right? You can have an animal that's like, you wish you never had it as a pet, like you could barely control it. So that could be you. That could be inside you. You're that raging animal that you have to always, now, unfortunately, you got stuck with it, you might say. Or you could be a cold person. You're not into things. You just don't care. You're not passionate about things. You don't care about doesn't care about anything. This guy has much less struggle in life. Not everything, the other guy, everything he sees, he wants. And he always has to control himself. The other guy doesn't care about anything. He just naturally doesn't really have feelings for things. He doesn't care about it. Like, I mean, think like someone who's very sensitive. Every time somebody says something, they get hurt. Some guy has such thick skin, it doesn't make a difference. So the 2 people go through life and they live very different lives. The guy who has thick skin, no, it goes through a breeze. Like, I guess, again, I'm bringing politicians again. We're all talking about it. Someone's very thick skin. They don't care what anybody says. They can hear you to their face. They say the worst things. They don't care. On the other hand, you have a person that should not go into politics, I guess, if you're very sensitive, because what you're going to have to do, you won't be able to deal with what people say about you. You know, you might not want to go in positions because so you have the same, you have two people, but everything affects them very differently than each other. So the nerd, that's why I said the nerd is like the kid in class. He's not into it. He's not tempted. You know, he's not into making trouble. He just doesn't want to. Not that he's working on himself. So you have a kid who's like passionate, a real animal in him that's forcing, and he sits and he learns and he doesn't care. But the nerd, he could just be sitting and learning because he doesn't like doing anything else. He loves to study, right? So the kid who loves playing basketball and he forces himself to get 100 on the test, versus the kid who's just a nerd. He's not a sociable person. He's what's the word? He's not outgoing. He just likes to learn and study, and that's just who he is. So and he gets 100. So you're going to compare the work that both kids did. The kid who it's much harder for him put in a tremendous amount of more work. So we can actually have both those kinds of Beinoni. That's what we want to say today. And the guy who works very hard, you might say, it's not fair. Why did I get the raw end of the deal? Why did I get the animal soul that's so hard to deal with? I have ADD and ADHD, and my emotions are, I am dealing with anger and I'm dealing with jealousy. And every time everyone says something, I'm jealous of them, and I have to fight that jealousy on a daily basis. And the other guy just doesn't care, does not care. So the answer is, the answer is that the goal is the journey, not the end result. The guy who's struggling is doing a mitzvah every single time that he's dealing with a struggle. He's accomplishing his mission in this world. There is a tremendous thing being done. This is not what the Tanya is about. I don't want to get into this fully, but he's accomplishing much more. The guy with the struggle is accomplishing, in a way, much more than the kid who's the nerd. Because he is fighting the fight every single day. Now, the truth is, and I'm going to add something here, the kid who is not fighting the fight is not okay too. He has to put himself into a situation which will be hard for him too and continue to grow. So in life, we grow when we're challenged. So a person cannot hit a point in life and say, okay, now I'm good. Let's say the Beinoni figured out how to deal with his emotions. He got it down to to the last detail. He got himself used to a routine, and he has everything figured out, and he's no struggles anymore. He had struggles, but he figured it out. He put himself in the right place, and he learned how to deal with his emotions and has it figured out. Guess what? He now has to move on to the next step. Life is about, like exercise is an excellent example. If you have a trainer, the second you get, the trainer's not doing a good job if you're comfortable. The whole point of the trainer is to make it hard for you, is for you to need to reach the next goal. So you are not successful in life. If you hit a plateau which you're not growing anymore, you're not successful in life. You always need to push yourself to go to the next step. So maybe for the nerd, he has to work on something else that will make him work harder. So life is about growing. Life is not just about the destination. Life is about growing from where you are to the next step. You always need to be, Hashem will push you a lot of times too. But life is always about growing and going to the next step. Let's see that in Tanya, and then we'll discuss it. See these ideas in Tanya today, and then we'll discuss it afterwards if anyone has any questions or comments. Did I stop it and start it again? I think I did, right? I stopped the Tanya and I restarted recording. Anybody remember? I believe so. Okay. We want to have it saved as two different files. Let's do this together inside. This will understand what it's written. It says a statement, an interesting statement. What does it say? It says, this is in the Talmud. It says, Shaftim Re'isam, turn and see, look and see, Bein Tzaddik l'Rasha, the difference between a righteous and a wicked person, which those are evident, those are obvious. What's the difference between a righteous and a wicked person? But here's the key. Bein Oved Elikim la'asher lo yavadei. Someone who serves God to someone who doesn't serve God. Now, normally, you would understand doesn't serve God, which means he's a wicked person. Tanya says today, no. Alter Rebbe tells us today that's not the meaning. What's the difference between the guy who serves God and the tzaddik? There's a difference. It's not the same. It's not repetitive. It's telling you tzaddik and then someone who serves God. It's an active, it's the present tense. You're serving God. There's a difference between saying someone's a servant of God to someone serving God. A servant of God, which means the tzaddik. He's become the servant of God. He's not working on himself anymore. Someone who serves God, he's not a tzaddik, but he's constantly working and trying to serve Hashem. He's in the middle of the work. I think maybe another example in my eyes, a good way to explain this is, how do we call a Jewish scholar, a scholar in Judaism? We call him a Talmud Chacham. We don't usually call him a Chacham. We call him a Talmud Chacham. What does a Talmud Chacham mean? It's a student of wisdom. A Jewish scholar is often referred to as someone who is studying. Not like your professor, and you've reached where you need to go. I'm a smart person now, but you're a student of wisdom, which means you're continuously studying. It's the act of studying, not just that you're brilliant, or you now graduated and you have a degree, but you're putting yourself involved. It's currently happening now. So a tzaddik is not someone who's working on himself. He already worked on himself and he finished working on himself. He still needs to serve Hashem, but he's a servant of God. We're not talking about the servant of God. We're talking about someone who serves God. The guy who serves God is the one that's fighting the good fight. He's fighting his evil inclination. There's Gabriel to overcome him, to chase him out of the small city. He's actively in the struggle. He's in active duty. He's not a retired soldier. He's an active soldier. He's fighting. I guess, right, you could say two kinds of soldiers. There's the soldiers who are retired, but he's still a soldier. And then there's the guy who's right now fighting. So he's very good for not letting the animal soul get into the body. And it's a huge work. It is extremely hard and difficult to do this. And who is that? That is the Beinoni. That's the Beinoni's life. That's our life. Our life is that we have the struggle, and we're fighting the struggle every day, in and out, every hour of our life. We're dealing with questions and we're dealing with struggles. We never overcome it and became a tzaddik. We are servants of God. We are serving God. We are serving God. We've never reached the plateau which we're just natural us. It's something which we fight. We are fighting. It's called, in Yiddish, in Hebrew, they call it an oived, a person that works on themselves. You don't say this guy succeeded. No, he didn't succeed. But he's someone that you could see in someone that works on themselves. So it could be a guy is showing patience, but he's not really a patient person. But he's working on himself. He's a guy who you could see this in people, that they work on themselves, which is a beautiful thing. So the goal is not to become a perfect person. The goal in life is to be the person that works on themselves, constantly working on ourselves to become better. Well, a tzaddik, the righteous person, is Nikra Eved Hashem, is called the servant of God. Shema Toar, it's like a title. It's the person's title. His title is that he's the servant of God, but it's not the guy who's still working on it hasn't become the title servant of God, but he serves God on every moment of his life. We have the same term with wise, sages, or a king. When you say this guy is a sage, or he's a king, that means they are that. They've become that. They are known as a sage. They're the wise man, or they are the king. Or we have, as I said, the Talmud Chacham, the student of wisdom, that he's not a sage, but he's studying. He's studying and he's trying to do the best he can. The tzaddik is the person that's a servant of God. It's a description of his title of who he is. He's a tzaddik. He's a servant of God. He's not fighting the fight anymore because his heart already went over the evil inclination, and he is missing. He has a void in his heart. He's a void that he doesn't have the struggle that everyone else is having. However, today he's telling us, even in the Beinoni itself, there's two kinds of Beinonis. There's the nerd kind and the struggling kind. In the Beinoni, there's both kinds of people. There's people who fight every moment of their life with their passion and their tendencies, their inhibitions, and the what's the word I wanted to use? That the messages are hard to sending them every moment. And then there is the Beinoni that is not really having such a fight simply because his animal soul is not so strong, right? Like, so they have the alcoholic, the guy with the alcohol challenge. struggling every moment, and the other guy doesn't care less. It's not even a problem for him at all. Just look at it and turn away, and there's no issue. So two people, same thing, have different struggles. The Beinoni could be someone who serves Hashem, someone who doesn't. Now, if you're saying he doesn't serve God, he's not serving God, he's still in a Rasha, he's still not a Rasha, he's not a wicked person, he's not doing bad things. He could even be like he did not do any sin, even a tiny one. So why is he not serving God? Because he doesn't have passion that's driving him that he needs to fight with every day. Maybe I'll give him an example. When you're 80 years old and you can't do a lot of sins at that time, 90-year-old guy in a assisted living who stays in his room most of the time versus the teenager who all his friends are doing who knows what. The teenager has a much greater struggle than the person who's not passionate about a lot of the things that the teenager is passionate about that he's struggling with. So you have this, that's why teenagers look crazy sometimes. They're 19 years old, who knows what they're dealing with inside them. But us in life, when we're older and we lose some of those passions, it's not a big deal for us. Now, it doesn't mean the older person is a tzaddik, no. Doesn't mean he's a rasha, also not. He just doesn't have that challenge. It could be that this Beinoni who's not fighting the fight never did a sin. He did all the mitzvahs he's supposed to do. And he learns Torah every moment he can. Doesn't miss a class. But he never stops studying. That's what he does day and night. But that's just him. He is not a social person. He's just inhibited. He just likes to read. That's what he likes to do. He likes logic. He's not fighting a fight at all. The natzchai to overcome it. He doesn't need to get in touch with, like the passionate guy who wants all these bad things needs to awaken the tremendous passion to God so he won't get caught up in the bad passion. So, but he doesn't need to. There is the natural, basic love that God gives every person, that every Jew has it in them, and that's enough for him. He doesn't need to get in touch with that anymore. He doesn't need vitamins and minerals, the vitamins to build up his immune system, because there's not many infections coming his way. He could just deal, life is good. There's no inclination against him that's trying to challenge him from Torah and serving what Hashem wants. He doesn't have to fight at all. You're going to massive like a real serious student. He's just born that way through a temperament that he doesn't care. He's not a pleasure-seeking person. He's not a driven for these stuff. Again, he's trying to give us an example of women. The guy just doesn't care for women. He's not looking to have drives and desires that the other person has. So one guy is he's going crazy from his desires and his drives, and the other person just doesn't care. It's naturally a cold person. And so too with all the other pleasures in life. He's just not a feeling person. He's not an emotional person. He's logical, just follows logic, dictates and does what he needs to do. Therefore, he doesn't have to daven for hours to create this love for God, to create understanding and knowledge and fear of God in his mind to overcome his passion. He's just not passionate. The other guy needs to sit and think about Hashem in order not to violate Hashem's transgressions. Obviously, he has to work on his love of Hashem. The dafka became a mitzvah to want to do a mitzvah, especially learning Torah. So the one guy really struggles with the passion, needs to arouse really healthy, strong, godly passions. And the other guy just says no issue. He just deals with the natural, simple, basic level of love for Hashem that he has, and he goes through life like that. Now, and by the way, we'll do that in a minute. He's enough with that basic, factory basic product, the basic model. So that Hashem gave in every Jewish person a certain basic love. That all Jews are called lovers of Hashem. So there's a basic kind of love that we all have. That's why he's not called someone who serves God. Not because he's a bad person. No, he's just not fighting. Because that love that he already has naturally in him, it's not achieving anything, it's not doing anything. You should say no, I would say he never, it was an inheritance, just like big deal. You know, they say, okay, you got $1 million in inheritance, so big deal. You didn't do anything for it. You should say no, I would say no, it's inherited by you, just naturally inherited from our fathers to the children. It's in the DNA. Like we'll explain it another time later on. So he's saying that they're both Beinanim, but they're still very two different kinds of people. Now he's explaining how you could have, so there's two Beinanim. There's the one who's going crazy with his animal soul, and the other one who just is cold. Now he said, why was the guy cold? Because he's born. Some people are just born like that. He's telling you that you could even become like that. It could be you're born with a tremendous passion, but it could be your parents raised you well, and you worked on yourself, and it became your second nature. So it's not, it became nurture. The nurture kind of, you never changed your nature, but you not really, you taught yourself to calm down. Maybe even with age, like I said, as age, a lot of these passions go away. Even someone who wasn't naturally a closed person, right? An introvert. He wasn't naturally an introvert who likes just to sit and study. But actually, here, when he worked on himself, and he went through many years of yeshiva, or he sat and he learned and he worked on himself, he taught himself that he likes learning, he changed himself. It becomes a second nature. So nurture kind of can become second nature. It's enough with the basic model love, unless he wants to go out of his nature. And tomorrow, we're going to learn more about going out of your nature. So even the guy, so you'll say, wow, is that the goal in life? Is that the goal, to get to the step where my nurture becomes nature, and now I don't have to fight anymore? And the answer is no. You always need to climb. You always need to go to the next step. You always need to serve Hashem. So wherever people are, they need to go to the next step. They need to go to the next level. We'll learn more about that tomorrow. But basically, he's telling us that within the Beinani, there's two kinds of Beinani. There's two kinds of tzaddiks and two kinds of rasha. And there's also two kinds of Beinani. One is in the active, he's in the active fight, having a real, in the war steps, which is most of us, that we're fighting our inner ambitions and our passions and desires. And the other one is that either he was born not to care, or he taught himself through nurture, he made it second nature, and doesn't have to fight so much. However, tomorrow we're going to learn that we always need to take it up a notch and always grow in life, because a lot of it's about the journey, not just about the end result. That is the interesting chapter we have of Tanya today with the two Beinanim. Any questions or comments on what we're learning?
Rabbi.
Yes, Joe.
Fascinating topic. I loved it.
Awesome.
One of the things that occurs to me is, remember that show the Israeli produced, not Unorthodox? I'm not going to get the right name. It wasn't called Shtetl, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody watched that. It wasn't Shtetl or something like that. It was one word.
Was in it, though. The same girl was unorthodox.
Yes, that's right. And what comes to mind when you're talking about the passionate Jew versus the geek, the guy who's just doing it, is the husband of the main character, who was kind of a schmuck. He left his wife and his family to go away to be with some girl. He cut off his beard. He did all of these terrible things. But in the end, he came back. And he came back because he realized what was most important to him. He erred, but he came back to his wife, and he was this kind of risky guy. He wanted to invest money in a risky investment. His wife didn't agree, but he did it anyway. And it ended up being a success, and he bought a restaurant for his wife. And he was the difficult one. He had this mashugi in his head. But he did what Hashem was, not that Hashem told him to leave, but in coming back, he was following what Hashem was telling him to do for him, to be a better person. And I think for me in this topic, what's kind of elucidating is, interesting, is the struggle and the difficulty, I believe, isn't necessarily staying in a misery or in a tumultuous situation, and it's not. That's it's fine to go through that struggle to get to a higher level, right? But I think that leaves an important. I think that leaves out an important point, which is the sensitivity to the path that Hashem is telling the individual to go on to do for him, for Hashem, but for the person, for their growth, which doesn't look the same for everybody.
Correct.
And that's the way I kind of look at it.
In other words, what Tanya's basically doing is telling you all these struggles in life that you see in the world, it's really within you. And it's your own personal struggle in life that we're all overcoming. And we all have that struggle. But the point in Tanya, one of the points I think which we're going to get to tomorrow is that the goal is to constantly struggle, because that means you're growing. That's part of the growth system. You should never hit they're both Bainani. I want to say they both are Bainani, but they're two different kinds of Bainani. One Bainani figures out how not to struggle, but he doesn't grow. So he's a Bainani that never sins, doesn't do anything wrong, does all the mitzvahs he's told to do, but he never raises the bar. He's never like the trainer that instead of trying to figure out,
instead of trying to recognize, okay, I'm in a conflict, what's the right path to come around out of it and to grow from that conflict?
How can I work on myself?
How can I work, throwing up your hands?
How can I work on myself to become a better person in this conflict, right? That's the point here. How can I work on myself to become a better person within the conflict that I'm in? I think that's what he's saying. So don't continue to grow in life. Don't work out, get to 100 push-ups, and that's it. Now life is good, right? I got to 100 push-ups, I figured it out, I worked very hard, and now I'm going to just stay there. No, you always have to push the bar. You always have to go up. And it's painful. A good trainer will push you. He'll know how to push you to your limit, but you'll keep on growing in life, and that's what life's really about. That's what he's saying. The servant of Hashem is the one that always pushes himself and learns to keep on growing in life. I think a lot of times Hashem will push you too. Hashem is your trainer, kind of, that knows where you could go, and he'll push you so you can help you grow to where you need to go. I want to say one thing. There's an unbelievable YouTube series. There's a guy, his name is Peter Santenello. Santenello. When I watched one of his clips, I had to watch all of them. All about the Hasidic community. He's the exact opposite of some of these shows about the Hasidic community, horrible shows that are not true. Basically, a lot of them are made by people who ran away from the community. I'm not sure if he's Jewish. I don't think he's Jewish, but he goes into the community with an open mind and literally gives you the people that are in the community, not the outcasts of the community, the people that are in the community, and it shows you how beautiful the community is. So for all those that watch this some of the other garbage that's out there that's portraying some Jewish people in a negative light, you must watch the real. This is a much more, no goals there, but you have to watch the story. You'll see the real, really what's going on. It's unbelievable.
Rabbi, can you send a WhatsApp text to the group with the name of that person?
I'll send it to you. I don't want to start sending it out, but I can send you his, I'll send you like one of the clips.
Okay, thank you.
Watch all of it. He has like, I don't know, 5 to 10 clips maybe in the thing. I'll send you one of them. Yeah, it's really interesting to see. I was like, so unusual that you'll get a good spin. You know, usually people come in to bash with the motive to bash, and they'll come out bashing. This is open-minded. So it's actually very interesting.
He's an experienced documentarian. He's made films from all over the world. He actually made a lot of films in India, Pakistan, Ukraine. So he's fascinated with world cultures. And when he came back to America, he was looking for a new project. And then that's when he came upon the different aspects. So he has some Chabad people, but he also has like Satmar people and people that are in Muncie. And he talks about Chavarim, which is really a fantastic episode. And he focuses on women. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome, everyone. I think we'll leave it here. We're already almost 2:00. Have a great day, everyone. Beautiful learning Chumash and Tanya today with you. And look forward to tomorrow, same time. Actually, 1 o'clock. Friday. So 1 o'clock tomorrow.
Rabbi. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. David, Joe, Ira.
Thank you, guys.
Evan, Ayal, everyone who's still with us. Take care. Have a great day.